Hi, good evening. My name is Jay Rothman. I am the host of the show this evening. Welcome to Real Men, Real Talk, Live. Welcome back to the studio of viewers. We are here tonight for a really exciting show. We're going to call this part two of honoring your fierce dream. We asked Layne to join us for part two since we didn't get through all part one, and he accepted the invitation with honor and grace. And so, welcome back, Layne.
Hey, it's more like I wrangled these guys and said, no, we've got to do a part two. And they finally said, okay, fine, we'll pay the ransom and let us go.
There you go. So welcome back, Layne. We have Kamalu coming in hot from a day of work. But he made it just over a few minutes late, but he made it home. And here we are tonight in our studio. And of course, we have Chris joining us as well. Welcome from a new studio. Right now, it looks like you're in the outdoors tonight.
Yeah, trying to just get out of the house and do more than I've got the next 4 days off. So yeah, just getting out and moving around. So
Oh, beautiful. Tonight's episode, viewers, I want to take a moment to welcome you back. Tonight's episode is all about honoring your fierce dreams. And with that, if you should hear something you like or you love, viewers, we invite you to drop your comments down into the comment section, as well as feel free to share the show out with your friends and family this evening when you are inspired by something that you hear. But in the meantime, last week's episode was all about honoring your fierce dream, and the reason we decided to come in for part two was we kind of went off on our own little journey or an adventure without the plant medicine, and it took us to places we just didn't know we'd even go. But we're back, and during our production meeting we had just a couple of 24 hours ago, I do want to share some highlights as to what our intention is that we want to really dive in and tackle tonight and really break down. So here they are. Do we allow ourselves the freedom to dream our own dream in silence and quiet? That's a good one. Does the dream lead to the purpose? Does your life detour become your purpose? Is it a desire to expect and wish, or does the desire lead you to your dream? And we're going to explore the dreams we have had that have been societal dreams and how we can chisel the cracks within us to uncover the divine dream right here instead of what we think we're supposed to do to meet the judgment or to meet the expectations of either our culture in our society or the culture within our own home. And so, Layne, you're in a top shelf tonight, just like you were last week as a special guest. So I want to invite you, just for those that may be catching for the first time, tell us just real briefly about yourself. Who are you? What makes you the master of dreams and stories? How did you get here? And why did you pick this topic, honoring your fierce dreams? What does it mean for you?
Man, how much time do we have, Jay?
We'll give it as much time as we need tonight. I got nowhere to be later.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much, Jay. I love what you're doing. I love being on here. Anyway, let me just say that I was one of those guys caught in somebody else's dream. I ended up getting the nice job at a university, the PhD. Ooh, this guy is all-knowing guru, and man, I just felt empty. Like there was a hollow in my gut. And I would go into dark places on the internet because I didn't feel fulfilled. And then something happened. I read about a guy who hopped on his bike and cycled from one side of the country all the way to the other. And when I read that, something lit up in me. And I said, oh my gosh, can you imagine? Like, who does that? And I read two things. I read about some guys that decided they just had it with corporate America, with all the hullabaloo, and said, I gutted my garage, sold everything, and biked across America. Okay, I thought that's crazy. And then the second one is people did that, and then when they got home, they gutted their garage and said, why do I need this crap? I lived for 3 months off of what I carry on my bike. Why do I need this? And so they gutted it all, sold it all, and had a clean slate. And I thought, man, whatever they did, whatever they experienced to go counterculture like that, I want to experience that. But it was impossible. I was married, 7 kids, job, mortgage, student debt. How do you do that? All the voices say, nah, wait till retirement. And that just didn't work for me. And there are other stories along that thread into that tapestry, but mainly against all impossibilities, we did it. We loaded our family up into a motorhome. They crawled across the US in the motorhome while I went on the bike. And that dream shook the very world on which I stood and opened all kinds of new dreams that were totally unfathomable until that point. I think there we go.
What did you learn about yourself through that journey, through that road trip, with 7 kids in tow, and of course your beautiful wife?
Yeah. Thanks for asking, Jay. I learned a couple of things. One, I learned that I was really angry before and I didn't realize it. 2, I realized that I was entitled and I would have never called myself entitled. But I learned that I was and learned to give that up. And then I learned that I got really tight with the heavens and that you can say God, the universe source out there, had a great love for me and connection. And I also, like, this doesn't fit into the question you asked, but I learned to feel the heartbeat of America. People all across the nation opened their homes and their lives and took us in. And I realized the world that we've been conditioned to believe is scary is actually incredibly loving.
Wow. Wow. That had to be eye-opening, not only for you, but for your family, for your children, your older children to witness that.
Yes.
So did that kind of create a new relationship for you and believing, let's say, having hope and feeling inspired that in fact maybe you do have infinite possibilities?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Before then, there were so many limitations crowding and boxing me. And afterwards, I realized, wow, what else is possible? And I thought, well, I want to cycle every country in the world. Why not? It's a big, beautiful world. It's the desire. Let's make it happen.
So here's my question. I want to propose this out to let's say to Chris Morrison. Um, Chris, did your detour become your purpose? And you got your. I'm going to unmute you right now. You don't need to worry about that. You got it. There you go.
I got you. Did my detour become my purpose? That's, I mean, I guess, yeah. Shit, oof. Because, yeah, I mean, if you would have said 6 months ago, Chris, you're going to be leading a global movement to help kids hold themselves in their divinity 7 months ago, I would have had no clue what you're talking about. Like, I would have had no. So yeah, I'm deep in the trenches of the detour. This is not the thing that I um could have ever imagined, right? Like, but getting like, I don't know, I was talking to somebody today and we were going back and forth of, we talked the other day about like, what is my dream, right? Like, is it the coaching with men and all that stuff, or is it working with kids? And they both kind of play into each other. And she was just like, just listen to the tone of your voice. Stop and listen to the tone of your voice. When you talk about one, how does that sound? When you talk about the other one, how does that sound? And I was like, she's like, there's your answer. You don't need anybody to tell you anything. Just listening to how you speak about working with kids, holding their divinity, helping them hold their divinity. Like I don't say that about men. It's not, I mean, it's like not that I don't believe it, but it's just like, I don't know. I was, I've been doing some different projects, trying to put together stuff for, I don't know, just putting together stuff. I've been really struggling with it. I've been bumping my head against, oh, what's that? Oh, that wording doesn't resonate, and oh, that wording doesn't, that picture's not right. And you take a step back, and it's like, it's not a specific sentence, Chris. It's not a specific word or picture. It's that maybe that's not where you should be focusing your energy right now. Why don't you step solely into working with kids? Be with you guys in this show and have that be my outlet with men, and the rest of it just purely be intentional into just working with kids. Like I had a conversation this morning with one of the parents of the it was really funny. I was on this guy's website last night looking at how great his website was, and I was putting together my website, and I was, not directly copying, but looking at it and going, yeah, I like the way that format looks, right? And he calls me today, right? And he calls me today. And he's like, hey, I just want to check in with you and see how everything's going. We haven't connected in a little while. And the whole thing was all just talking about how to work with kids. Like, it's kind of like, had nothing to do with any of that, the stuff that I was working on last night. And so yeah, the detour is definitely lighting up the dream and the infinite possibility, which feeds into that purpose. So yeah.
Okay, I got to ask you, Chris, do you feel pushed into it or pulled?
Ooh. It's okay to take a moment and breathe.
It's just been kind of like offered. It was just laid out in front of me. I started doing these Saturday morning meetings. Somebody, we had an event here in January, and one of the guys pulled his daughter up on stage, and seeing how she reacted to other people got him to finally realize, like, oh, I'm not going to be the one that carries the message. I've been talking about this for 20 years of her life. She's 20 years old now, and there's certain aspects of it that just don't land. I'm her dad, right? We don't carry the message to our kids sometimes. And so he got a bunch of people on a Teams or a Zoom call the next weekend or the weekend after, and we're just talking about how do we start bringing this message more to kids and stuff like that. And after like the second one, he was like, yeah, I don't have time for this. I've got all these other things. I got an international company I'm running, all these things. You're gonna have to do it, or he's like, somebody's gonna have to do it. And I was just like, well, I mean, I've chaired a bunch of meetings. I can do a Zoom call, no problem. I did not know the depth of the ask that he was actually making. Right? This wasn't, hey, can you open up a Zoom call for me? It was, I'm holding place for you and giving you the keys to hold place for children across the world. What do you want to do with it? And to have somebody, I've fought, right, for leadership positions everywhere I've gone, fought fiercely to look like tooth and nail. So jealous of people that got the things that I went to, writing huge, like just I fought and fought everywhere. 20 years of fighting to be a leader. And sometimes I got to that position. Sometimes I good at it, and I, I always did really well. And this time it was just like there was no credentials. There was no, hey, how long have you been in the being movement, or how long have you like none of that. He was just like, do you think you can do this? Go ahead. You got this then. I'll support you. I got you. And it was just wild to think. It was just wild to have that offered. And I just, so yeah, it's
So if I can echo that back, Chris, it sounds like you all the pushing that you did trying to be a leader got you nowhere.
I mean, it got some things right. Like, I mean, I did have a really cool group at Boeing that I put together, and I have been a really impactful leader in some places, but it was always limited, and it was always to a certain degree, and there was always a glass ceiling and walls on it, and and the ISR and making sure that I was always doing it just exactly right. And this is just here's the canvas. What do you need from me? How can I support you? Go for it.
Beautiful.
And
I want to bring Kamalu in because he's been such an active listener here, and I'm sure he must be thinking. I know it's only a matter of time. I'm going to be in a hot seat, so I'm gonna set you in a hot seat right now, Kamalu. I need you to unmute yourself.
I'm using your mic, my friend.
Beautiful. Okay. So in any event, so here's my question for you, Kamalu.
Yes.
As you are navigating in your 20s to find your own purpose or to experience and honor your fierce dream without maybe not even knowing what that looks like quite yet, what role does do your desires have in playing out the desire and the dream? Which comes first? Is a dream create the desire, or the desire create the dream? And how much chiseling do you have to do to part the armor or the walls that were created by your ancestors, the words that were spoken by mom and dad and perhaps even grandparents? How much of an influence or an impact have they had on you honoring your own fierce dream?
That is a big question. I
warned you. I gave you a little bit of a heads up.
Small kind. Yeah, I think the dream is what created the desire. But I think Chris spoke on this too, that kind of my discerning tool with all of that has been the feeling. Like that, when I think of the dream, I think of the visualization, and then how that visualization manifests as a feeling in my body when I'm thinking about that thing. And then that's what creates the desire for me to take action. So dream comes first. And we spoke a little about this too, about like deviation from the path being part of the purpose. Like one of the things that I'm realizing is that I don't totally know what the dream looks like in its totality. But by me going and trying this and trying that, even if I don't like those things, find that they don't work for me, that gives me more clarity about what I don't prefer, so then I can gravitate more towards what I do. Chiseling the parents. I grew up, I think, with a little bit of confusion around that. Mainly because I had conflicting information. My dad was and still is a huge supporter of my dream in music. And also, I grew up in an environment where I learned that it wasn't, it was very unlikely that I would be able to do that as a full-time career and have that sustain me. So I got that support and that encouragement, but it was never offered as like, this is what you can do. It's maybe a side thing that you could do, but not the thing you could do. So there was a little bit of confliction there that I'm still working through and chiseling at. Yeah.
Chris, what do you make of that? What did you hear come out? Just share.
What's coming through on this is just like allowing ourselves to. I really do like going back to that idea of the sculpture, right? And the artist just removes what's not the subject, and it's kind of like, was that maybe, looking at trying to do the men's immersions and the working with guys in that way, is like, was that something that just kind of I needed to look at and check from a couple of angles and remove that from the overall piece? And so I think that allowing ourselves to have that motion and that energy to try that, I don't know, that's not right, get back over to this, and it kind of just hones down on that. I mean, I think 3 days ago, I would have said, I did say it flat out. I was like, I don't know. I have these two things. And I at any point in time, I would have flipped a coin, and I would have chosen one and be like, okay. But it's like, now as I not remove it, but like, know that that's a secondary aspect. That is not the dream. That's something that will maybe play in the background of that. Has really allowed me to kind of sit and hold that energy, hold that feeling, and have it, just see where it resonates. And so for me, it's like, just, saying, here's Chris's audacious dream, holding immersions for kids around the world to help them hold on to their divinity and understand who they are, not who we think they should be, and to create a community that when they forget will hold space for them until they remember.
Chris, are you worried that by choosing one, you have to forsake the other?
No, I just didn't have clarity. I knew that one would play into the other would play, and I just didn't have that that clarity, right? I had initially I had the one thing kind of come through, doing a session with somebody, and it's like, that's the first thing that came through, and now the whole youth thing has come through as well. And it's like, so I had two just competing deals, and they just had to kind of play out, figure out which one was really the dream.
Yes. Can I share an analogy that I love to use? I'm waiting for permission. Come on, guys.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
It's the way I think of it. It's like we're juggling balls. You've seen professional jugglers. They're out there throwing up the green and yellow and blue and orange and purple and red, and they got all these balls in the air. And we go, I don't want to choose one because they're all so pretty. But it's not until we go, you know what? and we grab the red one, and we watch all the others bounce to the ground and roll off into the gutter. And we watch them go with a kind of a sinking in our hearts. And we go, no, this is it. The red one. And what's amazing is that the red one now becomes hyper magnetized. And all of the other ones, the blue and purple and green and orange, they all, like little ducklings following their mother duck, as you move the red one forward, they all come trailing behind in its wake, or they fall off into the wayside and you never see them again. And so
What does that mean? What does that mean for you, Layne? Break it down.
it means that when you focus on one, you see how all the others can also be achieved. And that by focusing on that one, they do get achieved, or they fall to the wayside because they were never really part of your desire. They were just societally stamped onto your brain and heart, and said, you were told, go for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to switch gears here. I think the biggest takeaway that many of our viewers had from last week's part one that came back to me through comments, even on replay, was the profound, consistent aha moment for many of our viewers was how the detour becomes the path, or the detour has become the purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And it is such a profound moment of clarity when we can either see that with a loved one, or we've experienced with it ourselves, or even a friend. So, for example, many of us are stuck in life. We're paralyzed to some extent, whether it be in our personal relationships or our business relationships. But we're in a state of paralysis. And that state of paralysis is usually around fear. We fear different things that have us bottled. We literally bottle ourselves, and sometimes we even put the cork back on. And we don't know how to open the bottle to escape because we're so scared. Even though we know where we're at, we're not okay with. Yet, when we hit some life crisis, it could be a health crisis, it could be an accident, a physical accident, it could be a relationship that's gone bust, that's imploding, where our needs aren't being met. And through that moment that either was forced upon us by an accident or a health condition, or by a relationship that's a season's coming to a close or an end, many of us have the opportunity to pivot, to literally have that detour become our passion, become our purpose. And through that, we literally find out things about ourselves we never knew was possible before. I can only speak for my own self. My detour became my purpose at age 54 when I got sick. And through what I experienced on the onset of that, it led me to experience parts of myself I didn't even know were present. And through that, I uncovered and discovered my purpose. I uncovered and discovered my desire in life. I uncovered and continue to allow the dream or dreams to enter into my life. And that's not me trying to control it. That's me just inviting it in. That's me trusting, having faith in a power greater than myself Source, knowing that perhaps he can see what I can't see today. So even when there's those moments of discomfort, moments of fear, moments of uncertainty, moments of confusion, if we allow ourselves to come back to complete center, which is right here, we have infinite possibilities to turn our detour into our path, to turn our detour into experience the true essence of our dreams. And the key is what I'm describing here, gentlemen, is it wasn't as though I had a dream. It wasn't as though I knew what I wanted to do. It on some levels, it felt like it was forced upon me. But hitting that threshold for pain that was so high, that rock bottom, it provided such clarity that I couldn't see when I was chasing the other dream. The dream of being enough, the dream of being successful, the dream of having that big title, the dream of the financial wealth. Is any of this making sense to you, Kamalu?
100%, brother. I think you touched on something really powerful there, which is our main purpose in life is ultimately to be ourselves. And if we don't know who we are, or we've lost sight of that, it's very hard to dream clearly. And so I think that's, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like your story was you got to a point where you were going against yourself to a level that it created physical illness in your body. And then your purpose then became figuring out who you truly are. Wow. Now that you know who you are, you're dreaming clearly and you know what your purpose is.
Boom.
Mm.
Boom.
Mm.
How is it that the young guy is the one with all the wisdom?
Good mentor, I suppose.
That was
What
awesome.
comes to mind? What comes to mind for that is that saying, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Right? If we don't know who we are, then everybody else, we talked about that in the unconscious document, right? Like people just write what they think you are and off you go. Right. And so because we haven't declared who we are, we haven't stayed connected to source. Let me switch this. I didn't stay connected to source. 12 years old, I gave up my creativity. I gave up my childhood. I gave up and I became a man. And I just severed source. And because I didn't stay connected to that, I lost who I was. And so I just became everything that anybody ever said to me. And only in declaring that I am worthy, that I am the divine light that creates my experience, do I actually get connected back to source so that I can live into that purpose.
Chris, I want to invite you just to take a moment here, just to breathe. Allow yourself to feel and receive what you just shared, right here, right now. You're muted.
I know. For some reason, it just makes me mad right now. I'm really fucking mad right now.
Whoa. Why? What about it makes you angry?
It's so many years of disconnect and dis-ease and anger and violence and all of the things that define 20 years of my life.
Are you open? Go ahead, Chris. Go on.
All from one just simple passing statement from some random person. So
You know, Chris, I think we're always our own worst critic. And I felt like I wasn't being true to myself for a couple years in my early adult life. And eventually it got to a point where I had to, like, the options I saw laid before me, where I either had to come clean and be honest with the people I loved, or I was going to have to end my life. And when I did that, that was something that one of my friends shared with me. He said, I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit for the real you shining through. I know you feel like you maybe haven't been totally honest about who you are. You feel like you've been playing this character, but like, I still see you, and the real you still does shine through, even behind the mask. And that changed everything for me. So I realized that even if I'm like trying to go against who I am, it's not really possible for me to totally and utterly not be me.
I want to piggyback on what Kamala just shared. And that's this, Chris, is that we had to go through every hurdle, every step, every moment that caused us and people we care about sadness and pain. To be able to step into the life, to the dream that you are creating for yourself right now, and for your sons, and for others that are paying attention. If you hadn't gone through all of that, you wouldn't be here today. You wouldn't be on this show. That's for damn sure. And you wouldn't be having your first book as an author coming out. You wouldn't be living this new path. This detour has led you to this new path. And so I really want to encourage you to flip your own narrative, your own mindset. There's no room for guilt or shame or even blame. What there is room for is a true essence of gratitude. And we had to go through every one of these hurdles. We had to overcome them. If we don't step into that, we don't pick up wisdom. We don't evolve into who we're evolving into. And the truth is I don't know that we're ever done. I mean, honestly, as much progress you've made just this past 6 months or 9 months, keep that seatbelt on, man, because there's so much opportunity. You haven't even begun to tap into your purpose in your life. You're just scratching the surface. And I want to invite you to become the artist of your own soul, man. Pick up that chisel. Yeah, you can close your eyes and receive this right here, right now, brother. Pick up that chisel with grace, not with anger, but with grace. And allow yourself to continue to chisel away at all that sadness, that anger, that pain, that hurt. And what you will find as you continue to embrace becoming that artist, you're going to fall in love with your own soul, with your own heart. And I'll tell you this right here, right now, man. I will continue to believe in you 100%. Because I can feel, I can see, I have witnessed, I observe how far you've come since I met you a couple of years ago, man. Layne, what are you making of any of this right now?
Well,
Before you go there, real quick, before you go there, I do want to say this to Chris. I do want to say this to you, Chris. Thank you for being brutally honest right here, right now. That's what this show is all about.
Yeah. Just real quick though, but I realized when you're saying that it wasn't anger. Anger was the response to the pain. Like hurt, right? You know, spend so long living in your only response that you get to have is anger. So anger was the reaction to the feeling that I was having. So sitting in that, thinking of that, hurt. It hurt to sit in that. And so I realized when you were speaking there that that was words were not quite right. And so it was an angry response to the hurt that I was feeling. So just
What's underneath the anger? What is the emotion underneath the anger? Are you able to describe
hurt,
it?
hurt, man. I'm hurt that you know, just yeah. I mean, it's just like just sitting in that hurt of that little kid that didn't ever get to process that.
Are you able to
Yeah.
process it for him now?
Well, the 12-year-old boy that never got to mourn his dad or so it's just hurt. It's just unprocessed hurt. And so you just get accustomed to acting out in pain or acting out of that pain and well, that's cool.
Layne, what's coming up for you right now?
Well, there's a whole bunch of things, like a whole fireworks display of thoughts and ideas. But first, I agree, Chris, that it's amazing that you right here to see the armor and the shield fall to the wayside. And here you are, vulnerable with scabs and open wounds, bearing it. Rock on. Like that's that's the point of this, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, but Chris, can I just be blunt? Okay. Embrace the anger. Don't judge yourself for it. Because I'm sensing that there's some judgment that you had around it, that you've kept it for all that time. And you were so raw and vulnerable when you just said, you know how I feel right now? I'm effing mad. I'm just angry. It was like, whoa. That I didn't know that. Like, I don't know that any of us knew that until you said it. And then there was this backtracking, at least how it occurred to me. Embrace it. What we resist persists. So if you just love the anger, love it. We are meant to feel, and you can't feel the highs without also feeling the lows. And I think society tries to sedate us into this idea that no, you've just got to be even. Well, you know what that is when somebody flatlines.
They're flatlining.
Yeah.
They're dead.
They're dead.
Boom.
So love it. Embrace it. Go, yeah, I'm feeling it. That's what I'm feeling. Own
We
it.
are all definitely alive.
Hey, you know what?
Let go on its own.
You know, Layne, here's the truth. The only thing worse than that was when I was on psych meds for 21 years. Not because I was crazy, because I struggled with anxiety as a very unhealthy man. So those psych meds, all they did was they just numbed me out. I might as well have been flatlining. It's not a whole lot of difference. I couldn't access the healthy emotions. I couldn't access the majority of the emotions. And of course, those psychiatrists, you know, one psych med wasn't enough. They gave me two, and they gave me a third one for breakthrough anxiety. That was the Valium of the Xanax. Give me a flipping break. You want to talk about being angry, man? What pisses me off is that our mental health system is jacked. When I came off of those psych meds, guess what happened? I met me. Imagine that. At age 54, I met me. And I finally started to express what I was feeling, my emotions, all of them. So yeah, that's we're back, we're off-roading again. We're off-roading
No,
again.
that's awesome. And Jay, what an incredible connection between what you just said and the whole experience that you experienced with all of it, all, the whole range, the flatlining, sedating, as well as the amazing magical discovery of you. And the interesting connection I'm seeing here is here we got somebody whose dream is to help kids awaken to their own divinity. Well, they've got to, like, if we try to purge their feelings, their emotions, whatever they are, yeah, it's not going to get to it. But if we allow that and we sanction it and we say, absolutely, you're mad as hell, go for it, yell, do it. Like, otherwise it's there, the bottle with the cap on it, and you're shaking it up and they're just ready to explode because they don't get a chance to process and have somebody say, yeah, go for it, it's okay.
I do want to preference one thing though, Layne.
Yeah,
not at the expense of somebody else.
Agreed. Totally agreed.
That is a very interesting point, Jay, because I've always been afraid of my anger for exactly that reason. Like, I'm afraid to fully lean into it because I'm afraid of the effect that it'll have on people around me. I don't want to hurt people. And so I'm like,
yeah. And that's important, is because if we're in a relationship and we're expressing anger through frustration and rage, and if there are children in that home, we're creating a firestorm in our home. And so I think we want to be really consciously aware of how we are expressing and where we are showing and expressing our anger. I think is, for me personally, I had to learn how to manage my emotions. And, Chris, what I love what you did tonight was beautiful, because I went through that a couple of years ago, where I came out and I made an announcement and I expressed how angry I was at somebody with Mary. And then I caught myself and I paused. In that moment, I closed my eyes and I asked myself, what's under the anger? And once I was able to uncover and discover what the true emotion under the anger was, which was sadness, I then honored those emotions in a healthy way. So I do believe it's important to get the anger out, but I think it's also important that we don't harm or hurt other people in the process. It's got to be done in a conscious mindful way. Agree?
Yeah. The one caution though that I'm feeling inside is that there are ways of expressing it while still allowing, let's say, kids or spouse or significant other to go, just like we can get upset and frustrated and let them know this isn't about you. You are not the source of my anger. It is not your fault. And we can verbalize that so that they know, okay, that we own our feelings and that we say, this is me, it is not you, but still rant or go throw a dish at a wall or something and be very, very clear to them, I'm upset, it's not your fault. So that so that they're not locked into those shackles.
Yes. I statements. I'm feeling this, not you make me feel
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
Layne, I'm curious. I want to switch gears here right now. Believe it or not, we're coming up on 50 minutes into the hour. One more time. How do you feel about becoming the artist of the soul? Are you in alignment with, what does a chisel mean for you? How have you chiseled in your life to honor your fierce dreams?
I think it goes back to what Paulo Coelho said, that the 4 reasons people don't pursue their dream. And one of them is we're afraid of hurting the people we love. And I don't mean like in a physical way, like, hey, I'm going to beat you up, but they can feel rejected. They can feel dismissed. Man, I don't even know if, let me back up a little bit. I gotta get some clarity in my body on this. So if I echo this back right, you're asking, how have I chiseled to find the fierce dream, to honor the fierce dream?
Yeah. And were you aware that you had become an artist? You know, you were using a chisel to chisel away and create, either take away
Yeah.
and or create.
And I can't remember if I said this last time or not. Did I talk about the stack of dreams? Did we
And if
do
you
that?
did, it's okay. We have viewers that were not with us last week. So
Okay. So here's, for me, Jay, and I really appreciate the question. After cycling across America, which was my deepest, fiercest dream, I was connecting with Source going, what's next? What's next? And I was told, you need to write. And finally I said, well, look, I'm too scared to write. I'm afraid of what people are going to think. I'm afraid it won't measure up. So instead, what you got? And I was guided through a process, which I would highly, highly encourage every single person listening to experiment with it and just see what comes up. Because it's really a fascinating mental acrobatic exercise. Anyway, I was told, grab a stack of 3x5 cards. On each one, write one dream. So I wrote, own a Corvette, live in a big mansion, go parasailing. And I had a stack of dreams. And I was guided to pick any 2 up, just randomly pick 2 of them up and see which one I valued most. So discard the lesser, keep the greater. And so I did. I kept the one, and then keep doing that until I went through the entire stack. So I had a pile of throwaways and a stack of keepers. And I was guided to go back through that stack and repeat the process. And there were some things that just shocked me. Like when I looked at own a mansion or parasailing, I looked at those and thought, well, mansion, of course. Like, isn't that the dream? You own a big mansion. And as I looked at that, I had to interrogate my soul and go, why do I want that? And I realized I didn't. The only reason I'd want that is to look good for people. And who cares? Like, to go parasailing? Oh my gosh. That, like, there was no question after that. And so as you go through the stack, they get smaller and smaller and tougher because you have to interrogate the internal reasons. Why have I embraced this as my dream?
I'm curious, Layne, when you have those moments of awareness or clarity, how has that been navigating that with your wife? Meaning, Does it disappoint her at times because she still wants to have that, to have that experience with that dream, perhaps if it was not just your dream, but a dream for you as a couple, for your
So
family?
that's a great question.
Thank you.
Um,
I'm chiseling.
yeah, chiseling. I've got two responses to that. One, there's something that I call dream entrapment, where we trap others into our dream. And partly that's because we feel guilty about our dream, and we feel like we cannot pursue our dream unless we corral our loved one into it. And that's false. We don't need their permission or their sanction to pursue our dream. And that may rile some feathers. But the second thing is, I did not honor her fierce dream.
Ooh.
And I did not chisel to find out what is your dream. How can I support you in that? Not that you need my permission or my sanction or help, but now it should, like, ideally come from choice, that I now want to support and help you in this, not out of obligation, just because I want to. And Mary, my number one dream was cycling across every country in the world and to receive $250,000 a year doing it.
You went through a lot of rubber to get there, didn't you?
Yeah.
As in tires.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm not there yet. It's unfolding.
Beautiful. Wow.
Layne, I want to know, what was the hardest two? What was the hardest two? And it might not have been your the last two. What was the hardest two where you had these two things in your hand and you're like, which one caused you the most strife?
Well, there were three that I ended up with, Chris. And I looked at all three, and one of them was to change the landscape of education. One of them was to create or write the seminal book on dreams, and then cycle every country in the world. And when I looked at all of those, like the value for other people was really high on some. Value for me, you had to balance the value you perceive for others with what really resonated in your heart. And I looked at those three, and I really couldn't decide, except that, yeah, like if I really had to pull off the skin and really look deep in my heart, it was, I wanted to cycle every country in the world.
Love it. I love it. And I love it because this is my dream for me, for myself. And because it's so easy to get pulled into that. Like you're saying, oh, this is going to have more societal effect, so it should be the dream, and it just gives you that false peak, right? Like, oh, I can go do all these things, and it's like, yeah, but is it you? Is it truly who you are, who you declare yourself to be? And so I love that, man. I love that. That's where you landed.
Let me just add one final thing, Chris, because I really appreciate that. Thank you. That is, we don't know the ministering of the divine. And so what seems really selfish ends up turning in miraculous ways that we couldn't even fathom, to benefit people on levels that didn't exist.
Butterfly effect.
I'm curious, Layne. Do your title says Master of Dreams and Stories. Do your stories create your dreams, or do your dreams create your stories?
Dreams create the stories.
Beautiful.
I mean, it's kind of both, but
You were so sure when you first said it. I was gonna applaud you on like the surety of how forceful you said that. So it's interesting to see you take pause on this now.
Yeah, maybe it's just because the head's getting in the way. I think deep inside we want the stories, and the dream is what leads to them. I love Mary's question. What's your dream, Kimalu?
Now, it's really interesting that that just came up because I was going to close us out with asking each one of you gentlemen to literally let's light us up right here, right now with what is your number one dream? If you had to pick one right now, what would that dream be that you want to embrace, you want to chisel, you want to create, you want to live in, you want to taste, you want to feel, you want to live?
And I'm starting this. Okay. Hmm. Ah, I want to travel the world playing music to crowds of thousands and thousands of people, seeing everybody dance and move and just feel that collective energy and bring that everywhere I go. That's what I want to do. That's my dream.
How's that feel to say that?
Clarifying and more, I don't know, more real. Like when it just lived in my head as a dream, it didn't felt like kind of a nice little fantasy. Yeah, feels more real to say it out loud, have that be received.
Boy, the energy was just thick and exciting.
Yeah, I feel it. Feel it.
So that's in alignment with does a dream become so fierce that it grabs your heart and doesn't let it go? And when I say it, I mean it. It's a question, but it's also a statement. Because when you are on a cusp of that and you just have this inner knowing that all that we have done or continue to do to prepare, it's not a question of if, it's only a question of when. So I'll go second. I'll go next. I just put it out there. My dream is for Real Men, Real Talk Live to be big, real big. We travel, we're on stage, we're reaching masses and masses of millions of men and women, but primarily inspiring men that we have infinite possibilities to find our way home to our true, authentic self, to fall in love right here with our own heart, to be at peace with who we are, no longer creating mayhem in our life, pain. That's my dream, and I feel it's really close, and that's why I've stayed with it. There's been detours, there's been moments of disappointment, moments of sadness, but it's not taking me off course. I mean, if I have to get dirty and dusty off-roading, I do that too. But I know this is that is my dream because it's just an extension of what I do with men and women every single day of my life, 7 days a week, inspiring all of us that we have infinite possibilities to feel safe, to come home to our authentic self, not who you thought I needed to be. That's my dream, to reach more people. And to me, Real Men Real Talk Live is the conduit to reach more people. And that's why we're here. And when I meet a man, and in just a brief conversation like I had with Kamalu at a local restaurant, and within 10 minutes, I knew that this was a very special, beautiful man that needed to be on this show right here, right now. So who's up next? Who wants to share your number one dream that you'd like to experience in your life?
I'll go next. I've said it here, but I'll say it again. Create the community. Create the community for when that. Oh, sorry. I want to create the community that when it comes to a person's life where they choose to step away from their divinity, that they have people around them that allow them the space to remember who they are and to always step into their creation. Because there's always going to be that hurt, that comment, that thing that allows people to give it up. And we can have them surrounded with people to hold them up, to choose something different. The world will shift. My little Chris will shift. My little Chris will be healed.
How do you want to do that, Chris?
What's that?
How do you want to do that?
The thing that comes to me is conferences, immersions, 200, 300, 400 people at a time, more, from starting here in Phoenix and going around the world where we can have people come in and go through 2-3 days of working together, working with people that have dedicated themselves to that, to understand, to help kids hold on to that divinity.
The reason I asked the question is going back to something Layne had expressed earlier about allowing the dream to be a little bit selfish, because the intentionality behind everything you just said is part of my excitement in doing music, is bringing people together and back to who they are, and to have that be a healing thing. And I think that's part of Jay's excitement in doing the podcast, right? So it gives me a little more permission to feel totally excited about going and doing my music when I understand that that's actually an act of service that I'm offering too. And that's part of my excitement around it, is I get to bring mass amounts of people together to come and listen and have a healing experience, whatever experience they're meant to have. But yeah, that's why I asked the question of what that looks like to you.
How you feeling right now, Chris Morrison?
Tired. A lot of energy has come through me. A lot of emotions, a lot of feelings, like a little big energetic release. So right now I'm actually kind of tired, kind of spent, and and I'm okay with that, right? Like it's a perfectly, okay space to be in where it's kind of
Yeah,
going
Chris.
through that healing.
You know, it's interesting, Chris. That's not what I thought I was going to hear you say. May I share what I felt was going to come through you? I really felt that you were going to say, I feel loved right now. With the men in this room. That's what I felt was going to come through you. So I will say, welcome home, Chris Morrison. How does that feel?
I love you, Jay. I love you guys so much. Thank you. Thank you for leaning into that. And thank you for having a space where I can, I don't have to answer in the way that, people, people would normally answer, right? Like that's just I can truly, you know, I declare myself to be authentic in every interaction that I have. And I know that I can do that here. And, and the only way that I can do that is because I am loved fully, without boundaries. So
Yeah.
Layne,
yes.
before you answer the final question, I'm going to hit you with a first question first. This is your second time on the program, part 2 for tonight. Are you aware of how tonight's experience perhaps was different for you than the first time?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Big difference.
Tell me more.
Um,
How are you feeling emotionally?
this one seemed more, for me, this one seemed more in flow. More interactive, more genuine. I mean, last time was great, but there's an energy about this one that to me is like double what it was last time. I think and I think it's because we chiseled, and we did that last time. But I don't know. For me, there's an uplifting, energetic vibe that comes from going both directions, from opening up and chiseling, going deep, not just for the pain and the anguish, but also for the joy and the euphoria and excitement that dreams hold.
You know, it's kind of like the dating game.
How so?
You answered the question for Layne. Well,
so someone had to
it's like dating a new friendship. It's like dating. It's the courtship. It there's trust that has to be built. There's
Mm-hmm.
there's fluidity that has to be built. There is the connection has to be built.
But for me, Jay, yes, it does need all that. But the thing that for me rocked it was in Monday night's call, how you verbally expressed permission to ping pong and to dive in, and like, don't wait for me to call on you, like just go in.
Mhm.
That permission, I felt like I didn't give myself that the previous week. And you giving that, I felt more open to jump in, to receive other people jumping in. Like that was just magic. And I hope you do that every time, because that was awesome.
Well, let me put it to you this way: it's kind of like the first time you go to a sandbox. You're the new kid. The first time you go to the sandbox, if you're 3 years old, you may be a little cautious.
Mm, mm,
You may feel a little timid. You may not know if what the protocol is, what the rules of engagement are
mm-hmm.
to be social. So perhaps on a subconscious level, it was little Lane the first time around that wasn't quite sure if he's going to be able to play in a sandbox.
It could be.
And I gave you permission to play. Just saying.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. And I would like to say to you that love to have you back on future episodes when the timing is right and the topic calls to you. But now back to the hot seat. I'm going to invite you to close it out tonight. Number one dream, fierce dream that you have not honored yet, that you'd like to put out in the universe tonight.
So the dream is to not just cycle the world, every country in the world. I want to take government leaders at the highest levels with me without their entourage, so that they can feel the heartbeat of other countries and realize that the boundaries we draw are tighter and more beautiful when we draw them around us rather than to exclude us. And I've been really shy and hesitant because that's huge. Part of me thinks it's impossible, and part of me knows that, well, that's how you get to it. You've got to dial in the thing that seems out of reach. But that's what I want. I want to take those government leaders out in ways that will change how they see their neighbors, their quote opposing countries, and create a lot more bridges.
Beautiful. I love that. I would endorse that. How about you guys? Do you like that, Chris?
Oh man. One, I wasn't expecting that at all. That was a curveball. And thank you for feeling that's gotta be scary, right? Like Kamalo's, like that's gotta be scary to say that to the world, you know? And so thank you, thank you, thank you. And I think that's amazing. To get past all of the, like you said, right? World's not nearly as scary as people want to make it out to be. And it's only because that's a narrative that's easy to control, right?
Mhm.
So when you get out in the back roads of Montana, you know, in the campground that we used to have and had bikers come through all the time, bicyclists come through all the time, and bikers, it was great. There was no fear there. There's a bunch of kids running around fishing. So no, I love it, man. And I think, and I just, that's a beautiful, beautiful premise, and let's make it happen, man.
Thanks,
Make
Chris.
it
I
happen.
love you, man.
Yeah. Let's make that happen.
I just want to take a moment here to acknowledge each one of you, Mennonite, as well as our viewers. Thank you for coming back for part two. I hope that you all heard something tonight that you were ready to hear, whether you knew you were ready or not. I hope that you were touched by something that was shared in tonight's show, episode 189. And if you are inspired, please share tonight's episode out in your family and friends community. And viewers, I do want to invite you to honor your own fierce dream. Even if you don't know what it is right here, right now, that's okay. But just trust that if you keep showing up for yourself, taking those baby steps to find your way home to your true authentic self, you will find your purpose. You will know what you desire. And you will honor that dream and every other dream that comes through your consciousness and through your connection with Divine Source. And with that, I want to thank each one of you men for showing up tonight. You know, if you weren't here, I'd just be doing a one-on-one. But you make it so much more interesting. Chris, thank you for showing up real and raw tonight. Today was our 6-year anniversary when I first launched Real Men, Real Talk Raw as a one-on-one, my first podcast. And here we are, 6 years or so later, showing up as real men, real talk. Are we ready to close it out? I think we are. I love you guys. By the way, one last thing. If I was going to talk about one more dream that I could not have predicted, here it is. I'm heading to Denver tomorrow. Why? Because I was invited to officiate a wedding of a man that I met almost 30 years ago. We were in our 20s. We had a lot of growing up to do. We met in corporate America. We were peers, associates, became friends. He's getting married for the first time. And it's happening this weekend. I'm going to be in Denver to participate in his wedding, officiating his wedding to his beautiful fiance, Lisa. His name is Scott. And I am so honored. And here's my truth. If I hadn't done my own work, my own journey of coming home to return to my own authentic self, I wouldn't be going to Denver tomorrow. I'd be somewhere else. Most likely it would be in a grave. So viewers, do the work. Show up for yourself. Learn how to like yourself and eventually fall in love. And through that, you'll find what your passions are. You'll find what you desire. It'll show up right up at your doorstep. All you got to do is be willing to look down and be willing to look up. And with that, viewers, thank you one more time for joining us on Real Men, Real Talk. La!